Hi, welcome back to the shop. I've been wanting to do a little review on these Yamaha 650s for quite some time now, and I know that this particular one here is not a shining example of what these should be. I bought this bike when I was still 21. That was back in 1979, so that's like 46 years that I've owned this bike. It's It's a family member. I've had it that long, but this thing, oh, when I bought it, I used to read a lot of Iron Horse magazines and even Easy Rider, so I kind of wanted something I could chop. And unfortunately, when I bought this, it was in nearly perfect condition. It was, like I said, a 1975 with the star black paint on it, with the gold and white stripes. Beautiful paint job, maybe the best paint job, arguably, that these things ever had. But I mean, the bike has been amazing. I butchered it. I chopped it. I put long forks on it. Oh, let's see what else I do. That first year, I put a lowering kit on the shocks in the back. I put a Sportster tank on it, a Cobra seat, a little blade for a front fender, a little fiberglass blade that I think I might still have somewhere. Anyway, year after year, I went a little further with it till I got to the point where the bike had a girder front end, which I made out of stainless steel myself. It was a really good solid front end, but then rigid rear end on it, step seat, all that stuff. I'll put a picture up here of that so you can see what it looked like, at least in the last incarnation as a chopper. But I had an accident with it, let me think now, about 31 years, maybe 32, 31 years ago, yeah. And I decided to start going back the other way with it. I didn't completely restore the bike, but the W650 Kawasaki was coming out then, and I thought, well, so many people mistook that bike for when it was chopped, for a Triumph, that I thought, well, why don't I try to make it look like a Triumph? Because, I mean, as far as looking like a Triumph goes, boy, I tell you, Kawasaki really nailed it, especially on the profile with the W650. Anyway, like I said, what do I think of this bike? Well, like I said, I've had it for a long time. It's, as I mentioned, a family member. I've got like 8 bikes right now. Most of them are old British bikes. This is definitely the most civilized machine that I own. Let me think, what else can I tell you about this thing? Like I said, this bike has been through hell and back, and it's my fault. This is why I'm always telling people when they get a bike, it's your bike, make it your own, but don't do anything to it that you can't easily undo. But the opposite of that is exactly what I did to this one. When I was bringing it back from being chopped, I did not have the 650 frame for it. I wound up buying a burnt out, and I literally burnt 750 Honda frame from a good friend of mine. Anyways, actually, I think he gave it to me for free. Yeah, he didn't need it, so I took it from him. Anyway, I took that Honda frame and I grafted the rear end of that frame onto that formerly hardtailed Yamaha frame. So that was an education and an experience in itself. So anyway, I started going back in that direction with it. I still had the standard forks that I kept, so I put those back on it. And let me think now. I still used the old Prism tank that I had on the chopper, but I was coming back more of something that was a little bit easier to drive and better handling. And I still had everything hard mounted on that old system. So, I mean, the vibrations were still going up through the foot pegs and everything, whereas on the standard 650, the foot pegs are isolated in rubber, the handlebars are rubber mounted. You basically, the frame gets to feel the vibration, but the rider doesn't, is the whole idea behind that. So, anyway, let me tell you a few more things about these bikes. Well, getting back to this bike, I think it would be a good idea, maybe instead of talking about the good things, to talk about things that I found over the years that weren't so good about this bike. Well, as you can see, it's been heavily modified from the original. I guess this would be a good spot to slip a little picture of one of those in there. Anyway, as I mentioned, it's not original, and I tell you, like I said, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I found about it that weren't so good. Yamaha, this is a 75, and round about this time, Yamaha was starting to make the wiring harnesses on these bikes a little bit more complicated. Not so much with the 75, but they had introduced a brake wear indicator on the back brake, which was nice, but totally unnecessary. They had not installed the headlight module in there that would switch you over to the other beam if you lost a beam on the headlight, but it just complicated the wiring harnesses on them, and they kept getting worse and worse and worse as time went by. And the later the model, the more complicated the harnesses were on it. Of course, this was chopped and bastardized 6 ways from Sunday, so it's been rewired. But let me see, one of the faults are the ignition system itself. The coils are kind of well known for being a bit weak, the standard coils. So anyway, on this bike, I have Bosch coils in here to replace the standard ones, and that made a huge difference as far as the way the bike starts and runs. With these coils in there, I can leave the choke on after the bike is started, and it will just keep running with that rich mixture and not foul the spark plugs or anything like that. Another one of the faults these have is that you get quite a voltage drop on the system when you turn the key on, because you are also energizing a car type alternator, which uses a lot of power to generate electricity. So as soon as you turn the key on, you're generating, you're charging that coil, that excitation coil in the alternator, and that sucks up a lot of voltage. I measured mine once with the key on, the key off, and I was getting a 1.5 volt voltage drop between no voltage and full battery. So what I did to overcome that is I fused a wire. It's a 12 gauge wire that goes directly from the battery to the ignition switch along the standard wire, the standard I think it's 18 gauge wire, might be 16, but in any case, I don't get the voltage drop that I used to. I get maybe a 0.5 volt now voltage drop. I'm still charging that system in there and that sort of thing, but it's made a huge difference, as far as starting the bike goes. Some people put what do they call that, those electrical things there, a relay between the battery and the ignition system. So when you turn the ignition on, you would energize the relay, and the relay connects the coils directly to the battery, and that of course would give you full battery voltage as well. So anyway, all I want to say about that, if you do what I did and you put a 12 gauge wire in there, make sure you put a fuse in that wire, because I have seen bikes burn before that had things connected to the battery that didn't have a fuse in it, so always use a fuse. Front brake, since we're talking about things that aren't quite up to scratch, but modern standards is terrible, but you can't compare a 50-year-old motorcycle to a modern bike. It's just not fair, right? So the brake will stop the bike, but I have other motorcycles with drum brakes that are every bit as good or even better than that Yamaha single disc brake. So it will stop the bike in a hurry if you need to, but you gotta put a whole bunch of fingers on that brake lever and pull pretty hard to get that front wheel to lock up on the pavement. It will, but like I said, what else do you need anyway? I mean, geez, once you break contact with the pavement, that's all you can do as far as stopping goes anyway. So it's, like I said, it's not as good as some of the drum brakes I have, but it is definitely adequate. I did change the pads in it recently, thinking that maybe over the years it might have got oil in it or something, because I do oil these bikes down in the winter time, but made no difference at all. So anyway, other than that, those few little things, I don't have anything bad really to say. Maybe the carburetors, these have CV carbs on them, and I find them to be very responsive. The trouble is, if you're going down a bumpy road, any twitches in the throttle show up at the carburetors, right, and the throttle will respond immediately, being CV carbs, to any slight changes in the throttle cable. So like if you compared this with a BSA, for example, or a Triumph 650, they have straight pull carbs on them, where these have CV carbs on them, and the straight pull ones don't do that on a bumpy road. You have more time to adjust before, you know, the carb jumps up or down on its own. So anyway, but they are good carbs. You know, they're simple to work on if you need to clean them up. Not as simple as a straight pull carb would be, but you know, they're still fairly easy to get on and off the bike, fairly easy to work at. These particular carbs on this model year were not unioned. They weren't joined together as a couple. They are quite separate. There's two separate cables going to them. Some people don't like that because, you know, the cables can go out of adjustment from each other, but it only takes a couple of minutes to readjust them and get them, you know, doing the same thing at the same time. But vibration wise, look, I drive a lot of British twins and singles, and this is the most civilized bike I own. It is, well, it's vibration free compared to a Commando or a BSA or a Triumph, and that's the kind of thing you would expect from, you know, a new version of a vertical twin like this one here. It's a 360 engine. Both pistons go up and down at the same time, just like the British ones do, but it's quite smooth. Now, again, you compare that to a modern bike, and this thing shakes like a friggin' paint shaker, but it's not a modern bike. It's 50 years old. It's not fair to compare it to a modern bike. It just isn't a modern bike. So, but like I said, it is the most civilized machine that I own. Anyway, let me see. I had this engine apart with my son probably 10 years ago now. The pistons were, or piston rings were passing a bit of oil, and we replaced the rings. But while I had it apart, I'd been running velocity stacks on this bike for years, and I was expecting to find some wear in the top end of the cylinders, but there was no wear there. I mean, the camshafts are perfect. They're just like brand new. Same with the rockers. And I remember telling my son that if you ever want to give this to your kids, you know, that you'll be able to, as long as you keep the oil clean in it, and, you know, and take decent care of it. But anyway, they're easy machine to work on. This one here, it's still running. The original ignition points in here that it came with in 1975. All I do with them is clean them up about every 2,000 miles. Just clean them up, adjust the gaps, set the timing, and I'm good for another 2,000 miles. So, yeah, it's a good machine. I highly recommend that if you can get an unmolested version of one of these, that you don't touch it. Keep it as stock as you can. I wish I had done so with this one. This is the one that makes me say, I may have mentioned this before, but it's your bike. Do what you want to it, but don't do anything to it that you can't easily undo, because the things I did to this bike were not easily undone. And I had to pay for it, both in terms of time and my wallet. So anyway, why did I go with this look? Well, I think I mentioned before that so many people thought it was a Triumph when it was chopped, that when I was going back the other way, I thought, well, gee, Kawasaki's doing it, why can't I? So anyway, that's why I came up with this. All right, well, I've talked about some of the negative aspects of the XS650, but let's talk now about some of the positive aspects. They are quite easy to do the maintenance on, and frankly, maintenance, that's part of owning a vintage motorcycle. That was part of the whole motorcycle scene back in the mid-70s when this was made. If you didn't do at least a little bit of your own maintenance, you just didn't own a motorcycle. And frankly, I know I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings by saying this, but I mean, if you have to take this to a shop to get the littlest things done to it, I mean, you shouldn't even be riding a motorcycle, period. But I mean, if you're looking at getting into these, you really should get yourself a manual, read it from cover to cover, read it again and read it again after that, and start doing at least a little bit of your own maintenance. It's not hard to adjust the valves. It's not hard to set the time in. And for God's sake, don't be afraid of ignition points. They're not that complicated. And you don't have to clean them and adjust them that often. You know, you have to adjust the chain like any chain drive motorcycle. The brakes, back brakes need adjusting because they're mechanical rod operating those. The front brakes don't need adjusting at all because it's a hydraulic disc. But yeah, these engines as well. I had a fella tell me one time years ago when I was probably in my early 30s, he said these Yamaha 650 engines will run forever, but they're not overly powerful. I think they were rated at something like 52 or 53 horsepower. When you rev these engines up, like if you bring them up to the red line, there's not really any point in it. It's kind of like driving a British bike. The more you rev them up, you're only making more noise. You're not really developing much more power. But if you want to do performance modifications on these engines, they respond extremely well to that sort of thing. Like I've driven a good friend of mine's, one of Mike Herman's bikes, and he has a 650 Yamaha, and that engine has been breathed upon by Hayden Engineering. It's got a 750 kit in it. It's got the racing cam and Mikuni carburetors on it. That bike is a whole lot of fun. The only trouble is it makes you want to drive like an arsehole, because it's that much fun when you twist the throttle open. But these here, the power is very linear coming out of a standard engine. Like I said, most of your driving is done, on torque rather than horsepower. So, but like I say, they do respond quite well. I would actually love, if I had another one of these, to put a cam in it just to see what a 650 would act like with the racing cam in it. But yeah, anyway, like I said, they do respond quite well to performance modifications. But again, when you do that sort of thing to a motorcycle, you are going to decrease the longevity of the engine. If you want your engine to last a good long time, and this one is lasting a good long time, it's 50 years old, It's only had one new set of piston rings that my son and I changed about, I don't know, I think about 8 years ago. And the old rings, frankly, they weren't worn out. It's just that the oil ring expander spring had lost its tension. So it was letting a little bit too much oil pass up into the cylinder. And with new rings in it, that just cured the problem. There was no wear at all on the cylinder liners, no wear on the cams, no wear on the rockers. Everything was really good inside the bike. And I remember I told him one time, I said, you know, if you take care of this machine, you'll be able to hand it on to your kids. And when we did that engine job, I said, remember when I told you that? He said, yeah. And I said, well, there's no wear in it at all. I said, you will be able to, you know, hand this over to your kids if you take care of it. But anyway, as far as these machines go, they are a good step into the classic and vintage bike world. You have something that is sort of similar to the Triumph, BSA, Norton, that sort of thing, but you also have something that they're different. The horsepower output was about the same on these bikes, but these machines have lighter cranks than the British equivalents, and these engines really spin up quickly when you open the throttle. They really respond quite well to throttle response because of the lighter cranks and that sort of thing. Anyway, you can drive these bikes around if you watch what you're doing to maintain the distance between the car in front of you. You can drive an awful long way without having to apply the brakes and just use engine braking to slow down. But yeah, frankly, they're a great bike. If you do decide to get one of these, try to get one, like I always said, it hasn't been monkeyed around with too much. Or if it has been monkeyed around with, like this one here, then at least you know that it's in good running order. The fellow who drives it all the time, and it's never caused him any problems. So that pretty much wraps the talking part up. I guess maybe we'll go out for a little ride on the thing and show you how it works on the road. Alright, I think we'll let this thing speak for itself. I haven't had this going in about 5 days. The engine's stone cold. The ambient temperature is about 23 degrees today. So, alright, turn the fuel on. Put the choke on. My father told me years ago that if I didn't use the electric starter, my battery would last for ages. He was right. I think I got, what was it, 8 years out of one battery, 7 out of most of them. But, anyway, when I first had the bike would not start cold on the electric starter. It would start hot just fine. But the only way to really get it going when the engine was cold was to use the Kickstarter. But nowadays it will start cold on the electric starter. Maybe I should show you that instead of doing it by the Kickstarter. Yeah, let's do that. It starts so much better than it ever did back in the early days. But, all right, so she'll go. To a point. Sitting there purring away. So, like I say, if these are tuned up right, not bastardized or fiddled with in any way, you got a bike that works really, really well. Anyway, I have to mow the lawn right now. It's supposed to clear up a little bit later on today, so maybe we'll take it out for a ride. We are down in Lower Prospect. Pretty small down here on a sunny sort of sunny day at least. Anyway. Home again, jiggity jig. Anyway, gonna wrap this up. In conclusion, I can say, well, you can make your own decisions as to whether these bikes are good or bad. But as for me, like I said, I own a collection of about 8 bikes. 7 of them are British bikes from around about the same period as this. Everything